So it gives me great pleasure to bring on the next act, the final act of the evening.
Yay.
So if you can all start making a little bit of noise for me. Keep that noise going, and welcome to the stage, Rachel Creeger.
Thank you. That's such a nice welcome. Like if I'd had that kind of affection as a kid, I wouldn't have needed to become a stand-up just for the validation. It's been brilliant. So that's nice. I should check at the beginning that you can all understand my accent okay? Because I'm from Essex and sometimes people do judge. I have to explain that because otherwise when you first see me you think, oh, she looks like Axl Rose's slightly cooler younger sister. And then I start talking and you're like, Pound Shop John Bon Jovi at best. I'm not a typical Essex girl, as you can see. I've got like no Ibiza tan. I'm pretty much a sprinkle of glitter away from the cast of Twilight. But I do have like other qualities. Like we're at home at the moment. We haven't been digging in a normal way. It's just starting to creep back. So I haven't had that thing of reintroducing myself to strangers night after night because I often have to explain that this isn't a pirate thing. It's a Jew thing. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not ahoy, I'm oy vey. It's very, very different. One of the blonde ones who walks amongst you, not trying to steal your treasure. But hair covering in Judaism is to do with being orthodox and married, and it's also become like my signature style. Do you know what I mean? Like my trademark look. Which is ironic when you think about the fact that it's a way of showing my roots, really. But when I started performing, I thought it was going to become a thing, like a big USP. And annoyingly, nobody has made a big deal out of it. I'm sorry. Because like Bruce Springsteen, he puts on a bandana. He's on the front cover of Vogue, isn't he? Straight away. If Harry Styles puts on a bandana, he's on the fashion page of Heat magazine. If I said to you, Bret Michaels from Poison, like we're quite a varied set of age groups, I think, watching. Like you might not recognize his name, but if I showed you the photo, you'd be like, oh, he's that rocker from the 80s with the hair and the bandana. But me, I get nothing, even though they've obviously paid an image consultant to make all their fashion decisions. And my stylist is literally God, nothing. It does seem like God is very particular about what happens on your head. Like Buddhists shave theirs, don't they? Sikhs grow theirs. Orthodox Jews cover theirs. You can only assume that after working hard on 6 days of creation, the 7th was spent watching Extreme Hair Wars on Channel 5. But because of the way I look, I haven't had to deal with that much overt anti-Semitism. Like generally, people wait to get to know me and then they decide if they hate me or not. And I understand why people don't always guess that I'm Jewish. It's because of this. It's because Judaism began nearly 4,000 years ago in the Middle East. And nobody looked like Sharon off of EastEnders then. I doubt it anyway. I think the only biblical characters we used to sing who are this pale and interesting were in Hollywood blockbusters where they haven't wanted Moses to come over too terroristy. My grandma used to say that the reason everyone in our family is so fair is because one of our ancestors had a fling with a Cossack. Now, I'm going to put it to you that to get to this almost homeopathic level of dilution, it probably took quite a few Cossacks, maybe quite a few great grandmas, or maybe one very naughty great grandma. But because of my ethnicity, like I always try to make a really good impression, especially if I'm dealing with members of the public. So for example, just before the pandemic, I was flyering for what was meant to be my warm-up show of my 2020 UK tour, but it turned out to be the only show of my 2020 UK tour for reasons that we're all quite aware of right now. And I got chatting to this guy, he took one of my flyers and he went, oh, he said, I love Jewish comedians, he said. I'm a massive fan of Michael McIntyre. Now, respect to Michael McIntyre, but I had to point out to this guy that his favourite Jewish comedian was not actually Jewish, and he was massively offended. And he was like, no, of course he is. He lives in northwest London. And I said, yeah, that doesn't automatically make somebody Jewish. There is more to it. And I said, right, but he supports Tottenham Hotspur. And I said, well, it's not actually compulsory for all Jews to support Tottenham. And then he said, right, but recently he was robbed and he had a really expensive watch stolen. And I was like, hang on a minute. And then he stormed off. But I think he thought I was massively anti-Semitic. Either way, whatever. The tour didn't happen because someone ate a bat, and then our leadership was decorating their flat or driving to Barnard Castle, and now here we all are on Zoom. But lockdown, I think, has changed all of us in sort of tiny little ways. For example, I challenged a parking ticket not long ago, and I ended the email, "Stay safe." I'll be honest, I don't think I really meant it. But it is coming to an end now, and people are looking forward to all different things. I think, like kissing their grandchildren and eating out in restaurants. And I think one of the main unspoken things people are excited about is not having to be nice to their neighbours. Right, because we've all been trying to help our neighbours with the shopping and all that sort of thing, and we've got a WhatsApp group for our road, like loads of people have had. And just before everything opened up on 19th of July here, I was still doing what we were all doing under the pressure. Before you pop out anywhere, you send a little message on the WhatsApp group to say, you know, I'm going out, does anyone need anything? And someone said to me, and this is right at the end of this whole shenanigans, so someone said to me, yeah, I just need 5 basic things, I'll send you a private message with a list. And the 5 basic things were a bag of potatoes, a packet of chicory, a tin of macadamia nuts, a pint of goat's milk, and a packet of Rexel Staples number 56. Like, no words of a lie. I thought it was a quick favour. They obviously wanted me to do a whole bush tucker trial. But like me, my family all love reality TV. You know, that's why I'm obviously thinking about bush tucker trials. And at the start of this whole thing, we were obsessed with the show Tiger King. Like, I don't know if any of you watched it. It was sort of compulsory, wasn't it? And when at the beginning, I didn't realise what it was going to be. I thought it was going to be similar to Christian the Lion, which something introduced to me by the brilliant comedian Adele Cliff, which is about a lion who was born in captivity in the 60s. Then years later, he's released into the wild, and then sometime after that he appears to recognize his human carers when they come and visit him, and there's reunion footage, and it's all very emotional. And yeah, Tiger King, not the same, is it? Very, very different. The thing about Christian the Lion is it spawns the concept of reaction videos, like where people film themselves watching something and then they put their reaction up on YouTube. Like a good contemporary example, I guess, is those 22-year-old twins who are hearing a song for the first time. I don't know if you've seen them on YouTube. I mean, I don't want to sound cynical, but I'm pretty sure that they have heard some of the songs before. Like, maybe they missed out on Too Shy by Kajagoogoo, but like YMCA, bit of a giveaway, they start doing the actions. But anyway, one of the things that came out of this weird lockdown experience is, like, now we're doing everything online, not just comedy gigs, but everything. So we've even been participating in religious and family milestone and rituals on Zoom. So back in April, a very old family friend of mine, it was April last year, I realised, a very old family friend of my parents passed away, and I wanted to pay my respects. So I signed into their funeral, which was on Zoom. I'm going to call it a Zoomerall because it seems like a thing. And coincidentally, some really elderly relatives of mine turned out to be like the picture above me on the Zoom, and they were new to this whole thing, like how it all worked. So it meant they kept forgetting if their video was on. They were visible to everybody, and they were veering between muting and unmuting, like the audio the whole way through. And what this meant was that instead of watching the funeral, I spent 20 minutes basically watching their reaction video to the funeral. Absolutely brilliant. So my personal highlights, I'll just share with you, were their response to the eulogy, where one started to play Candy Crush with the sound on, and the other one made a cup of tea and chatted. I thoroughly enjoyed watching them swiping through the gallery to see who turned up and actually judging who wasn't there. But my personal favourite was their very loud relief at not being physically present when they saw how far it was to walk to the burial plot from the hall itself. It was absolutely brilliant. It was like watching Jewish Gogglebox live. My favourite kind of TV shows have always been about the risk of an impending disaster. Like, no one has been more prepared for this situation than I've been doing zombie apocalypse material for years and years and years, and I never expected that was one day going to make me a topical comedian. But one of my favourites is called Doomsday Preppers. Has anyone here seen that? Oh, my friends, this is my gift to you tonight. Check it out. Some of it's on Amazon Prime, some of it's on Netflix. It's all over the place. Absolutely brilliant. So basically, Doomsday Preppers involves Americans, which is the least necessary word I've ever said in my life. It's always going to be Americans, isn't it? But it's Americans who are expecting the end of civilization as we know it, and they basically store up provisions to ensure their family have got enough to survive for at least a year. And then they're judged by a panel of experienced preppers. And I'm just going to put it to you that I don't know how experienced they could be, because to my knowledge, this is our first apocalypse, right? So whatever though. And they're judged on these 5 categories, which are food, water, shelter, security, and X factor, which I assume is how well you can entertain each other during those long nuclear winter nights in the bunker. But it's honestly fascinating, and I massively recommend it. But I realised that the reason I enjoy the show so much is because I totally identify with the idea of always stocking up on enough food for at least a year and keeping your family all engaged with how to survive anything, because that is how it works with every Jewish household. And we have judges who come in and have opinions on what's in our fridges and cupboards as well, and that is every other Jewish person who visits our home, right? That's and a friend once asked me, like, how comes I genuinely have food on me at all times, and how comes I like to always have food, full cupboards when they come over? And I replied, well, you know, as my grandparents were German Jewish refugees, I can only assume that it's in case the Nazis come, right? Because you're going to want to offer them something nice, aren't you? And then like, it's 2021, so probably you'd have to check first in case they've got any allergies or intolerances. I mean, we know, I hope we all know that they had at least one intolerance, right? By the way, like the highest score ever achieved on Doomsday Preppers was by Brian Smith, who got 78%. And when I did my GCSEs, that was a C, but in my Orthodox school, it was known as a Jewish Mother's D, just so you know. But yeah, as I say, we are coming to the end of lockdown, and it's been a very weird experience for all of us. I think there's been a lot of pressure on acts to produce work during lockdown, but people kept reminding me how during the bubonic plague from 1603 to 1615, I mean that the years, right, not the time, because 12 minutes is not a long time for a plague, as we've all realized now. But during that time, they closed down all the theatres and all the brothels because they realized it was passed from proximity. And during that quarantine and isolation period, Shakespeare wrote Antony and Cleopatra and King Lear and Macbeth. But he obviously had a lot more time in his hands because he didn't have to look after kids, filling begging letters to Rishi Sunak for a bit of money, or fight for an online Tesco shopping store. And of course, the brothels were closed. So he was fine. But one thing I don't think I'm going to miss is homeschooling, because I was homeschooling a teenager during this shenanigan. I was just looking in case he was sounding there, because he was lurking before. But seriously, like, I was getting emails from the school, oh, your son isn't at his online lesson, your son hasn't handed in his online homework. And I was like, what do you want me to do? Give him a detention? He's literally like in the house the whole time. But, in Jewish families, there is quite a lot of pressure on your parenting, and I think lockdown really exacerbated that. And being a parent is like quite a major issue for us. My cousin, right, she did an amazing job. She's got 2 sons. One graduated as a doctor, brilliant. One graduated as a lawyer, but then he didn't enjoy it, so he retrained as an accountant, which is amazing, isn't it? That is the top 3 jobs for Jewish boys and only 2 children. Brilliant. But I once reminded her that my last boyfriend, before my lovely husband, like, I'm married for a long time now, but when I met that boyfriend, he was a soldier, and before that he was a firefighter, and in his spare time he was a forest ranger, which is 3 uniforms on one very good looking boy. A little bit like dating the village people. But I am a proper Jewish mother, and so I have that aggressive level of pride you might have heard of, which is known as nachas in Yiddish, or as my phone auto-corrects it, nachos. Nachas is like the overwhelming joy you get in the achievements of your children, right? Or your children's children. or your children's children. Like, may we all have much nachas from our children. That's my blessing to you. And nachos are a savoury snack, and may we all have many nachos, because why not? They are very, very nice. But when it comes to parenting, Jews are always working towards the nachas. Like, for example, my oldest child is now an accountant, such nachas, and he moved out of home not long ago, and we went to visit him in his flat, and I saw that in the bedroom he's using the same deodorant that his dad uses. And I was like, oh, such nachas, he's still so attached. And then in the bathroom he's using the same shampoo that we use as a family, and I thought, oh, that's such nachas, he's still so attached. And then in the kitchen he had an apron with 2 really long strings led all the way back to our front door. He's still so very, very attached. I feel like I was a bit disparaging about my kids before, and I just want to really end by telling you that I do love them. I have that like massive mum strength that people always talk about. I think the expression that's often used is you're a tiger mum, right? That you have like strength and passion for your kids, and whatever happens to them, you'll be able to help them. You do anything for your children. And the example people always give of being a tiger mum, and I don't know why this is the example, is that you could lift a car up off your children. And I don't know why that's become a thing, but it is. And so I just kind of want to leave you reassured that I could totally lift a car up off my children. I'm a proper tiger mum. I mean, they'd have to do something really bad for me to run them over in the first place. This has been such a lovely gig. Thank you so much for having me, and keep supporting live comedy, whether it's online or in person. And hope to see you all soon, but not if you ask me to pick you up Rexel Staples. Thanks.
Rachel Creeger, ladies and gentlemen.